Hey, thanks for the submission. These are my notes. Those are my thoughts. Um, I'm still kind of seeing some of the same stuff that I saw last time, so I'll try not to spend too much time on it, but I do want to make sure it's explained clearly. But it's like some of the spacing on the feet I feel could be like pushed a lot more, um, and I'll kind of talk about that. So more like it feels a little even, and I'm noticing it on stuff like this foot when it comes down. So it's still stepped. If you can put this, I think, if you can address these notes and put it in a spline, maybe you didn't get a lot of time on it this week. But like, yeah, consider your spacing here, because it feels like it almost slows into landing on the ground, and it should definitely be opposite of that. You know what I mean? Like, you can see how even all this spacing is. I mean, here it's small and it gets big, which in theory is pretty cool. Like, that's what you want, but it doesn't really seem to like grow that much. And then here it starts to slow down. It feels like here and here is almost smaller slightly than there and there. There and there is kind of the same, and then that's like a slow one. So, I would have it be tighter together here, and maybe this is stuff you already know and there just wasn't time to get to it. I don't know how many frames you have, but that's kind of like the spacing chart where you want it. In fact, I did this wrong. Never mind, let me correct this. That is not an eraser. This program changed overnight, I swear. Alright. We're getting there. Alright, so getting back to what I was saying, I think the spacing right before you hit the ground is like kind of the biggest, right? So you have to like kind of ease into it, pick up speed, and then kind of, the only cushion at the bottom that I would want to see is a little like shock absorption on the foot, which you have here, where the foot is acting like a shock absorber. But also watch the spacing between these frames, because it looks like it moves little and then it moves, you almost want it to move between here and here. That would be the bigger move, right? So like that foot should be brought down a little bit, and then the last move is a tiny move, and that's going to feel like it's catching a fast speed and slowing it down, right? All right, so yeah, watch the spacing there, and kind of just like pay close attention. And I would definitely spline this. I think you're at a place to spline it, especially if you like hit those spacing notes. Yeah, so I'm feeling the shape change in the torso here. That's great. I remember that was a note from last time. But there is a big jump in the spacing I'm seeing with, like, if I look at the pelvis or the center of gravity, right? Like we're living here, and we go to this, which is cool. That's a slight change getting into this move. But I feel like this one's a big one. And then it goes into this one, and I feel like it's a little even maybe. So maybe bias this one a little bit more towards that. And then maybe you'll have to space out this one in a more even way, but that's all looking strong. It does kind of lose its forward momentum, like if I'm tracking just on a horizontal kind of, if I'm just paying attention to the horizontal movement, so trying to draw this like straight up and down, right? It's traveling forward. And it's okay for it to be traveling forward kind of in an even way, but then it kind of loses all of its forward momentum without any additional like forces being applied to it. You know what I mean? So if I'm looking at these green arcs, it makes an arc that goes like this, and then it kind of flattens and goes straight down, kind of. If there's a way that you could turn that into more of like a even parabola, you know, I think that would be stronger. And like here the feet are putting in energy to that forward jump, so it's okay for this spacing to be like gaining even, you know what I mean? But once it leaves the feet, it should probably remain on a certain steady horizontal spacing until it reaches the ground. Of course, you can play with that if you want to cartoonify it. That's fine. I would recommend here in this pose here, or in this frame, to have this be like your most extreme C shape that we're getting out of this guy. You know what I mean? Like that kind of contrast, I think, is something that will help push it, and it'll also give you more room to go when you like hit the ground with both the head and the feet here. So try to, like, you know, even if you want to like tip the feet up, you know, maybe these arms here could be rotated up a little bit. Not inherently to like change the pose, not so much where it changes the pose or anything, but maybe just to like kind of show that they're dragging in the air during the fall. Because here there's a change of angles in the hands, which is awesome. Maybe we can support this a little bit better by having a change in the arms, and then also here support it a little bit better by continuing that change a little bit. You know, I don't know if this is the level or extreme of that change that we want. You know, you could even like rotate the arms up this way, rotate the elbow up this way during the fall. Yeah, like you're doing here. But then the hands flatten, so I would keep the hands kind of like in this dragged pose, and just don't make it the same angle from frame to frame to frame. Actually have those hands dragging, because you had that dragging, but then you kind of lost it. So maybe if I was to correct this, those hands would be dragging up. Something like that. Just kind of like loosen it up a little bit. And the same can be true to the legs. Like this is nice where you're starting to drag it. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell if the red or pink one is dragging. It looks like it is. Maybe keep the blue one going up. Like maybe drag the toes in your foot angle up a little bit. Something like that. Just keep it loose. Keep it like moving. You want to make sure that we're not just like sailing a character through space without like having the pose have changes. I feel like here too, this frame, it's kind of a similar pose to here, so maybe we want to push the legs even more up in the air, push the angle of this torso up a little bit. It's similar to the first time there's contact and we get that impact, but I'm not seeing, you know, there's no like torso change. There's no shape change in the torso between here and here, and I think that'll help you out. And also here, it's like we really got to watch the spacing through this part. So if this is like the tummy, that's the tummy. There's a shape change happening, which is driving the stomach lower, right? But maybe this whole frame needs to be pushed up just a little bit so that we get kind of to the same place. So it functions as kind of like an ease out a little bit more than the beginning of a down. Because if I'm using this as the beginning of your down, we got this, then we got this. Let's see how that spacing looks. Yeah, that's like a big first jump. to go down when you're changing directions. So we need kind of like a frame here where we're showing this motion changing into that motion. And because you're changing the shape of the torso, which is awesome, you may need to reevaluate the height, the overall height of the character in that moment. But yeah, I think it's coming together. But keep an eye on the amount of time that we have left in the class. Oops, I'm trying to zoom. That ain't it. To make sure that you can get this splined and we can get some decent polish work in before the end of things. So yeah, I don't know. It's looking good though. I want to see it brought to a finish. Yeah, but great stuff. Keep up the good work. Yeah, try to fix up some of that spacing stuff and get into spline, and I can't wait to see your next submission. All right, thanks.